Hi everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Miriam Talks About Things. Now, life is kind of messy. The world is definitely messy at the moment, so I think we are just going to completely ignore that and talk about the books I've been reading lately. Before we do that, though, I would like to point you towards two things. First is the last episode of this podcast, and that is my episode on the Diviner series by Libba Bray. If you haven't watched it already, I will be linking it in the description. It is all spoiler free, so if you have not read the series, but if you're interested in it, you should definitely check it out. Again, it's spoiler free and you are totally free to watch it. There are no spoilers at all. The other thing I will be linking is a blog post I did on another one of my favorite museums here in Switzerland. I guess it's kind of a series at this point. And they are celebrating their 30th anniversary. So please go check that one out as well. I'm quite proud of it. So yeah, those are the two things I posted recently. So if you would like to check them out, please do. So again, as I mentioned, I finished the King of Crows, which is the last book of the Diviner series. And after that, I really needed something light and more fluffy, or more on the fluffy side. So I went for a contemporary with a sort of a romance focus, and that is Tell Me How You Really Feel by Aminah by Safi. The basic premise of this book is that two young women have to work on a project together, even though they had some turbulences and don't really get along, even though one has a slight crush on the other, and things go from where they have to come together and work on a project. And that project is a movie by one of the main characters, Rachel, where Sana is, through some circumstances, casted as the main lead. So yeah, my thoughts are a little bit complicated. I ended up giving it 4 stars, and it's definitely very deserving of that, even though I struggled to get into it at first. I was enjoying it when I was reading it, but when I put it down, I never really felt like picking it up again, simply because the reason they don't really like each other, or Rachel doesn't really like Sana, is basically a misunderstanding. And at first it really felt very unrealistic in its reasoning at the start of the book. Pretty over the top and like very much made up in her head. Upon finishing the story, I do have to say that it started to make more sense. With that, my enjoyment did pick up as well, especially in the second half, which I really thought was kind of brilliant. One thing I also want to point out that is pretty obvious, and the author is also very transparent about that, both in her dedication, in her acknowledgements, and throughout the story and the clues she gives you. This is heavily inspired by Gilmore Girls and like the old ship of Rory and Paris, because basically Sana's mom got pregnant with Sana at a very young age, similar to Lorelai. And Sana's mom also turned away from her very traditional parents, but then came back for the help with Sana's education, monetary help, which Lorelai did as well. And Sana's grandmother is a lot like Emily. And the film Rachel is based on the Odyssey, which we all know that Paris is very adamant that she read the Iliad at least 3 times. So, and those are just like obvious ones. Again, it was very intentional, and I thought it did kind of work. I'm just still not really sure about stories that mirror their original ones so closely. So yeah. Another tiny thing is that I really wished that the actual filming scenes would be described a little bit more. But yes, otherwise, again, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was super cute and a lot of fun, especially again in the second half. And I really, really enjoyed seeing the circumstances and backgrounds and their goals and their struggles for both characters. And I think for both of them, the dynamics between the two and between them and their parents was a massive thriving force for me. And I really, really appreciated when there was, that's no spoiler because I'm not going to get specific. There's a moment where Sana meets Rachel's mom Sana's mom meets Rachel that way, and Rachel's dad meets Sana, and I thought that moment and that scene was really worked well for me. So I really, really appreciated that, as well as the commentary this book did on how society treats women and what is expected from women. I thought that was brilliantly done. Yes, I'm definitely going to remember those characters, and I definitely will be looking out for more work by this author. Then I read a poetry collection, and I think this is by far the favorite poetry collection I have read lately, and that is Salad Anniversary by Machi Tawara. I give it 4.5 stars. This was extremely delightful, especially because I feel like the poems were very calm in their delivery, but also in how they focused on small things, but through that also addressed universal themes. I think the style, the length of the poem, and the language, and how that was very consistent throughout the collection as a whole, really, really worked well for me. There was also an afterword I highly enjoyed, and it was discussing the impact and the reaction the collection got from people and the writing method used, and that really, really added something to the collection, which I appreciate in afterwards. I really, really loved all of the poems, but I think my favorite ones, if you want to look them up, were Morning Necktie and Jazz Concert. So yeah, I really, really loved this collection. Yeah, highly recommend it. And then I read another one of Simone St. James' books called The Sundown Motel, and it is her newest release. And it's basically, as the title suggests, following this motel where in 1982, with somehow ends up working as the night clerk to pay for moving towards New York City, and soon uncovers some secrets hidden both in the Sundown Motel as well as in the town of Fell, where the Sundown Motel is placed. And in present day, a young woman called Carly wants to find out what happened with her aunt 35 years ago in the Sundown Motel. And not a big surprise, but I gave this 5+ stars. It's a new favorite. It's my second book by Simone and James, and my second new all-time favorite. So yeah, I really, really loved it. And once more, just like The Broken Girls, which again was my favorite book of 2019, this was a ghost story, but it was also so much more than a ghost story. Even though the ghosts aspect was even more brilliantly done in here, I think, than it was in The Broken Girls. The atmosphere and the tone of this novel were incredible. It was so eerie and so unsettling. I really got chills throughout reading it. I loved how she worked parallels and the repetition of things to really get under your skin. That really got me. As well as how carefully she curated her side characters, and that they didn't at all pale besides the main characters. This book heavily talks about violence and murder against women and what that does to all of us. It makes you realize how random those crimes are and how women are in constant fear about all of this, and it really shows those what it does to us and what it does when you are confronted with it, and who is really affected by it, like how we consume someone's murder and how we consume it as a story we can tell, and what it does to women alive and also the victims. And I think it was masterfully done. I really, really loved it. Then I read Woman World by Aminder Dhaliwal, which is a graphic novel, and it basically looks at what happens if men got extinct. And it follows a town and different characters in this town reacting to that, and to a world where, again, there are just women. And this book was brilliant. I think it was definitely made for me. It is a very funny book, so I know humor is very personal, so yeah, look into it if you're not sure. But it perfectly worked for me. I find the art style very, very great. The content was fantastic, and the jokes, and especially the comedic timing. The comedic timing got me, as well as the facial expressions through the drawings, and also breaking the fourth wall was just hilarious. I laughed so much that my mom actually checked in on me because I was laughing so much, and I was laughing throughout most of it. But it was also very clever and poignant in the messages it conveyed, and I found it very, very interesting and fascinating, and I think there's a lot to uncover there. The last book I want to talk to you about is Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. This is also contemporary romance, where basically these two people went to college with each other and are now meeting again after I think 7 years and sort of strike up a friendship, but they deem each other undateable and set themselves up on very disastrous blind dates. And I gave this book 5 stars, and I was not expecting to love it as much, and especially not to resonate with me as much as it did. This book was funny, it was entertaining, and it was very gripping in its writing. I really liked the writing style a lot. It felt like you were sitting down with a friend and the friend is telling you what is happening to them, which is something I really enjoy, especially in contemporaries. But the enjoyment really came from me absolutely loving Hazel. Hazel is a very eccentric character, and she is so refreshingly proud of her eccentricity, and as someone who is definitely also very eccentric, I really appreciated her character and the way she was written and the way she viewed herself and the journey she was going through with that, as well as how the characters surrounding her reacted to that. But I also really connected to Josh, and especially his outlook on love and hurting through love. I really, really enjoyed it. This book is really famous for its ending and for people not enjoying the ending. And while I didn't hate it at all, I found it actually quite charming in how it was written. I still found it to be a little bit random and a little bit out of place with the rest of the book. So I definitely understand where people come from, but this book was such a big surprise. I again gave it 5 stars. I really, really enjoyed it. And if you wanted to give it a shot, please do. I really, really liked it. So yeah, those are the books I have read recently. I'm currently in the middle of the Golden Days or the Golden Tage. I don't think there's a translation into English, but that would be the title, by Monica Sabolo, which is translated from the French. It's a very slice of life, observant novel. I'm really enjoying it. I will talk to you about that one though in another episode once I've finished it. So yeah, this is just quickly checking in, taking my mind off things, and yes, I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you have read any of those books, please let me know. If you want to read any of them, also let me know, and definitely let me know what you've been reading and enjoying lately. So yeah, talk to you soon. Bye.